All right, speaker view. Let's go. All right, so we are in round two of Walk a Mile. And the reason why we entitled it Walk a Mile is our main hope is for us to gain understanding, that we somehow want to be figuring out, how can we get to know one another better? And so appreciated what Abby said, and so many of the other sentiments is that we are in danger because we're generalizing about men and about women. But there's really no other way of doing it as we talk about this. So please keep that in mind. Um, but the big aim of last time was for all of us to gain understanding. One, to develop a biblical understanding of the connection between men and women. And I don't know if you can remember the 3 points that we spoke about, but the first one being that
No.
that we were made in God's image. Both male and female were made in God's image. All right. So any thought, idea, or action that sets itself up where one gender is more valued or more esteemed than the other, that's not biblical. Part of God's design was no, both were made in the image of God. Both were tselem, little idols that were to reflect his glory and goodness into the world. That being said, God did make us distinct and different. All right. And that's not an oversight on God's behalf. He's not like, well, life's too simple, I'm just going to complicate things for you guys more. No, it's part of his wonderful design. Obviously, that diversity is there so we can help one another, complement one another. Even when Eve arrived on the scene as the second human, if you may, it says that she was to be a helper. But I think Adam was supposed to be her helper as well. So we jointly help one another. And I think a great New Testament passage on that is definitely 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the idea of a body and how this all fits together. And then the last comment that we have from a biblical point of view that we need to grab hold of is the idea that every brother, every sister that has made Jesus Lord on this Zoom call is a brand new creation. Like, we do not want to look at one another from a worldly point of view. All right, you have been made brand new, but they are a work in progress. All right, they're not done. So that means that we're going to have to be patient, gracious, merciful with one another as we try and figure this out, and as we try and deepen in our relationships with one another. So that is what we spoke about, and then we also started the conversation to understand one another better. And I think Mark hit the nail on the head that I so appreciated everybody's level of vulnerability. I think it was Max that mentioned it. Sorry. I heard so many comments from people in the last couple of weeks that said, Chish, I didn't know that. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. I didn't realize this, So I just want to thank you so much for sharing your heart and being real and open, with all of that. The main aim of tonight, as Mark mentioned, is to get really practical. And what we want to get practical about is how do we treat one another? So with that biblical view in mind, with our goal to have friendships, how do we actually do this thing? All right, so Laura and myself will co-teach tonight, but have a look here in Galatians chapter 5. Again, we'll just kind of look at the passages here, and then we're going to jump into some practicals, and we'll also open it up for some Q&A at the back end of tonight. So any burning questions that you have, anything that you want to figure out, we'll put our heads together and try and come up with some answers. But Galatians chapter 5, verse 13 and 14. All right. It reads, you, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh or the sinful nature. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Obviously not much new here, but it says there for all of us that we were called to be free, that we were set free when we made the decision to be disciples. Instead of, I always thought that kind of, putting God as number one in my life or being committed to him would be restrictive. But in actual fact, the biblical message is no, when you do that, you gain freedom, you set free. You don't have to give into your sinful nature anymore. But then it follows up saying, don't use that freedom and do whatever you want. All right. And I think we can replace it with, don't use that freedom to treat one another whichever way you want. All right. So now that I could do whatever, no, we don't want to do that. And then it says, for the entire law it hangs on this one commandment: love one another, as you love yourself. Isn't that remarkable? Like, I don't want to oversimplify the Bible or the imperative in the Bible, but if you want to, again, I think I stand in some pretty solid ground with this. If you want to summarize all the imperatives into one, it is love one another. Okay, as you love yourself, or as Jesus loved you. Everything that we're going to be talking about tonight comes back to that and hangs on that. And then it obviously adds a couple of things about serving one another humbly in love. Okay, have a look at James chapter 2. James chapter 2. And I just want to say that love, if you look at the Bible's message, is dependent on the fact that we're made in the image of God. We each have inherent value. So that love is not conditional or dependent on anything else, but people matter to God, and we want to treat them that way. All right. James chapter 2, verse 1, some very practical advice says, my brothers and sisters, believer in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but say to the poor man, you stand over there, or sit on the floor by my feet, have you not discriminated amongst yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my dear brothers and sisters, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor. Is it not the rich who are exploiting you? Are they not the ones dragging you into court? Are they not the ones who are blaspheming the noble name of him to whom you belong? If you really keep the royal law found in Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing right. But if you show favoritism, you sin and are convicted by the law as lawbreakers. All right. So, interesting scenario that developed in the early church was the idea of showing favoritism. So obviously he restates that the royal law is to love one another as you love yourself. Nothing new there. But what started happening is at the meetings that these guys would have, there would be a rich man dressed in fine clothing, a talented guy that has his life together would come into the meeting, and everybody would be like, hey, it's so great to see you. It's wonderful to have you here. Hey, sit on this seat or that seat. And then at the same time, another guy would come in that is wearing shabby clothing. I think that's what it says, filthy old clothes. All right. So he's not looking that sharp. Maybe he's a little more awkward. And all of a sudden, they treat him very differently. No. Hey, why don't you stand at the back there? Or why don't you come sit at our feet over here? Okay. Now, I have never seen anything like that happen in our campus ministry. Hopefully you have not either. But I do think that the idea of showing favoritism can creep into our relationships with one another. All right. And what I mean by that is we can treat people differently depending on whether they grab my attention or not, whether they are in a certain category, in a certain box that I deem to be respectable, likable, attractive, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden, let's say we arrive at an event, man, I notice them. I'm very warm and welcoming them. I hold a conversation with them. I initiate a conversation with them. There's a special care and attention there. Hey, come sit with me, or can I make you a cup of coffee? But then maybe there's another brother or sister, okay, that are also at the same event where for whatever reason, we don't notice them. We don't pay attention to them. We don't even see them. When a conversation comes up, they try and hold a conversation with us. We find it hard and we're a little short. And what James is saying here is he's saying, guys, like that should not be happening amongst us. He says, if we show favoritism, we are in sin and convicted by the law as lawbreakers. All right. So I just want to make sure as we kind of venture out here that the culture that we're building in the campus ministry, when we talk about loving one another, favoritism, okay, is selectively loving. Meaning loving selectively, meaning I decide who I'm going to love based on whatever, and it's typically people that I like, and I'm going to love others a little less. Okay, that cannot happen amongst us, not in our relationship between the genders and not in the relationships in genders. And when we sniff it, when we see it, when we catch it in ourselves, I think the first thing we got to do is we got to stop, we got to confess. We've got to be open with it and make sure that we wrestle through that we love everybody the same way. Now, that does not mean you're not going to have some people that are better friends than others. That's not what I'm talking about. But our love should be sincere. We should humbly love one another in exactly the same way. Let me hand over to Laura here to say a couple of things.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Good to be together again. So after thinking about last time we all got together and giving it some more thought, one of the scriptures that stood out to me was in Romans chapter 12. So I'm just going to read that. In Romans chapter 12, verse 2, I'm sure you guys remember hearing it, and I'm sure a number of you can actually just recite this, but it says, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So when thinking about our relationships, I feel like renewing our mind has to come into play even in our friendships, even in our relationships, because we're all used to coming into this with a worldly perspective, if you will. So let me help you renew your mind. I'm not gonna go into all the scriptures and share all the scriptures, but it does say, the Bible does say, you are chosen. It says you're an heir with Christ. It says you are God's masterpiece, a conqueror, part of a chosen people, a holy priesthood. An ambassador is spoken about, a dwelling place for God or his holy temple. And it says, brothers, that you are God's sons, and sisters, that you are God's daughters. And I want you to think about that for a minute, right? God is a king and you are his children. Okay, so let me restate that, brothers, okay, Divan, NJ, Riku, all you guys, that makes you a prince. Okay, and sisters, that makes you a princess, right? So we are royalty. Okay, that's pretty amazing to think about, right? And so when we hear about royalty in the world today, I think we hear about it all over the place with the royal families in different parts of the world. But when you guys are truly part of the real royal family, when you become a disciple and you've handed in your world ID card, your citizenship now shifts to heaven, right? So as a group, and I think as brothers and sisters, that we have become family, not like a family, but a family. And that sounds amazing and, noble and exciting that we're all royalty, that we all get that. But I also know that each and every family member is made up of their own unique individuals. It's made up of many different personalities. I know a lot of you guys on this call. It has their own likes and dislikes, their quirks, their different hangups, their strengths and their weaknesses, right? And as Jacques has mentioned, or had mentioned just a little bit ago, love cannot be selective. It's not this warm, fuzzy feeling that we might think it, or might have been taught that it is. It's not hearts and roses and just the people that we like, as he was saying. It's actually an attitude of our heart. It's a way of being. Love is actually a choice, right? And I can't pick and choose to love according to what I want or who I think is lovable. And just like whatever family we're born into, we can't choose who is a part of this family. But what we can do is work on loving everyone. We have control over that, right? Because it is a choice. And that's the calling that the Bible actually has. So, how do we love one another? That's what we spoke about earlier, what Mark had mentioned, what Jacques had mentioned, that we're going to get super practical. Okay, so let's get practical. How do we treat one another? Gents, let's start with you, okay? So here we go. I want to talk about two things, and then under those two things, we'll expand on it a little bit more. But I would say considerate, or to be considerate, and to be intentional. Okay, so be considerate and be intentional. And I think the tricky thing is that obviously consideration can take on many forms, and it's actually very person dependent, right? It's not a one shoe fits all. And this is where it becomes a little bit like, well, wait a second. If it's not one shoe fits all, like, how do I go about doing it, right? And when considering uh, max is going to be very different than considering a Kia, which is going to be very different than considering an Ane. It's thinking about her specifically, then doing some homework and then acting on it, right? So in Hebrews 10, verse 24, it says, consider how we may spur one another on towards loving good deeds. So we're called to consider. So I think, brothers, that I'm not a brother, you can definitely help your sisters feel loved and respected by being considerate listeners. I've asked a number of sisters, in which ways they feel like this could be something, and being listened to, feeling heard. So when time is taken to be considerate and to really listen, it's amazing how loved and respected we can feel, right? And considering that we're each unique is another thing, not just the sisters. I think we can be categorized as the women, the sisters, and each one of us has our own unique story, our own likes, our own dislikes, and also our own struggles and our own dreams and our own weaknesses. Okay. And just to highlight a few things that they shared last week, that we can start to consider them in. I think one of the biggest things is considering them in their struggles. Okay, that impurity or immodesty, both of those things came up. That it is something that sisters struggle with. It is something that is very real to us. So what we wear or what you wear matters. Just like from our side, what we wear matters. um, how we portray ourselves and what we are posing like and doing on Instagram or on social media, those things in those things to consider the sisters. And when you're considerate listeners, you'll realize that they are unique. And when you realize that they are unique, your friendship will grow because you're getting to know them for who they are, not just for who you think they are or who you hear that they are. So I think as we get to know, if that makes sense, as we get to know them, we're going to know these things, and we're going to know what makes sisters think certain ways or struggle in different ways, or what makes them feel connected and loved and cared for. For some people, it might be a deep conversation over a good cup of coffee. Other people, it might be joining them on a hike or a bike ride or playing basketball or going for a surf. And still others, an evening of getting dressed up, going out to an insanely overpriced fancy place, but also just enjoying a good cheap cup of coffee there, or the cheapest thing on the menu. Okay. Others may want you to find out just how their test went, that they told you about last week. That we consider listening or considering how we listen and then remember it, right? Or how they're feeling after having a hard week or after losing somebody. And others still may be incredibly shy or overwhelmed, and just feeling noticed will actually just go a really long way. So I think as you pursue this, I promise that the second practical of being intentional will actually just flow from it. Okay, consider what they value, consider what they love, and have deep, honest chats. And, before before you're a new friend, you're actually their brother in Christ. So you have a unique role to play as well. It's a brother, right? And so we have to be honest, we have to be open, we have to be vulnerable and do life together, just like we would our own physical family. So brothers are protective. And I had four older brothers growing up. They're protective, they're annoying, they're supportive, they show tough love, they just have fun, they make things light. And if something's off, they also speak up about it and lead the way, right? And so I think, brothers, that is your role. And I think you can kind of embrace that and, figure out how you can be that for them. And the second thing is to be intentional, right? You need to be intentional. Start by spending time with the sisters. Few acts, probably safe to say, few acts will actually touch a sister's heart more than when there is just consistent time being spent with friends, period. Friends, both men and women, but being spent. Setting up an intentional time to build a solid friendship. Get to know her, build her up, compliment her, applaud her on what is going well, and then match your words with your actions, right? We want to spend time. We want you to want to spend time with us. If you feel like you have to, we feel that, and I think you can just ask yourself, do sisters feel like there's a hidden agenda when you're spending time with them, right? Or is it that you're just trying to get it out of the way so that you can move on with your day, or just have this conversation so that you can carry on your time with the brothers? But now if you've forgotten, or now if you've gotten to know the sisters and enjoy, you realize that, who do I see on here? A sorry, I'm just picking names I see. A is somebody that loves to get dressed up, right? And, be fancy, but budget is a real thing. Dress up, grab a double date, you know, set up candles and a fancy picnic and pick an epic but free location, make a toasted sandwich or 2-minute noodles, and buy their favorite drink. A thought out person specific plan with intentionality and effort will go such a long way. And one of the sisters was sharing with me that in this world, women are objectified, they are judged, undermined. They're told they're too fat, they're too thin, they're not light enough, they're not dark enough, they're not clever enough, they're not strong enough, or will never measure up. And where insecurities, mental health, or their self-worth is honestly just in the line of fire constantly. I think just knowing that we have a family of brothers who see us, a family of brothers who are where we feel heard, where we feel loved, respected, and can just walk alongside us, and we feel cared for and honored, for our heart and our love for God and our indignation of sin. That's absolutely priceless. So if you walk away with just two things, sorry, I know that was a lot of things, but if you walk away with just two things, be considerate and be intentional. And if you didn't follow along anything else on how to go about doing it, grab a sister, ask her what it means, be willing to have awkward conversations, be willing to mess up, be willing to learn from those mistakes so that you can grow and actually become the brother, the friend, that God actually knows that you can be. Okay, so amen. Be considerate and be intentional. I think you gents are awesome. I'll hand it back over to Jacques.
All right. Thanks, babe. Yeah, and just to add to that, brothers, just from my side, this is what it actually says in 1 Peter chapter 3. And we are training future husband and wives here. Like, where are you going to learn how to be a husband and wife one day? And that's one of the things that it says to husbands: consider your wives. Because I do think our natural leaning is, and this is a stupid generalization, let me talk for myself, is we self-centered. We know, and that's why it says, husbands, love your wife as you love your own body. We know what it means to take care of ourselves. All right, but one of our major areas of development, and that we need to be way better than any man in the world, is to be considerate. So I think that's awesome and intentional. So, sisters, let me speak to you for a moment. So I also have two things for you guys. So obviously for the brothers, it's considerate and intentional. Sisters, here's your two words, and we'll kind of hang a couple of ideas on them. Um, the two words are appreciate and initiate. Appreciate and initiate. When we as brothers feel appreciated, we feel loved and respected, and respect being our greatest need. Okay, so let's unpack appreciate a little bit. What would make us feel appreciated? And again, I've had a number of conversations. I've just been thinking about this. Went back to the notes that was written last week as well. So here's some of the things. I think one of the things, and this is super simple, but is women, for you to be the first to greet. So actual fact, as a man walks into a room or at an event, to be the first to walk across the room. And I know sometimes that can be intimidating, and that could be sort of like, I don't want to be too forward or whatever, but I think it goes a long way for us to feel noticed, to feel appreciated. All right, so be the first to greet. I think the easiest way that we feel appreciated is just say it when you see it. Okay. What do I mean by that? If you see a brother do something praiseworthy, just say it. Like, you can say, hey, job well done, whatever. You pick the words that you want to have. But if you see them do something God honoring, you see them make a godly decision, you see them put in effort. For example, let's say you see a brother that is typically kind of maybe a little bit more introverted, but he's making a concerted effort to go and meet new people at an event to make them feel loved. If you notice that, just go up to him at some point, just say, man, I just want to say, I saw that. Thank you so much for doing that. It goes a long way. Maybe if a brother preached a certain lesson or did a welcome or whatever it might be, if you see it, say it. And you don't have to fall into the trap of like, he's going to get a big head, like you already, I don't know, maybe it's not going to be helpful, maybe it'll be more of a struggle. Don't worry, man, we'll figure that out. Like if he's prideful and arrogant and his head swells, we'll deal with him. Don't worry. But I think it goes a long way if it comes from you, that if you see it, say it. All right, it's very simple, but very powerful. I remember, recently with Laura and myself, I did the Sani to See. And it's kind of, I've shared this before. It's a 265-kilometer, 3-day stage race, mountain bike race. And I don't cycle. I've never done a race like that. I don't even have my own bike. But Max's dad invited me to do it, and I said yes. But I remember throughout, Laura I would come home, and man, we've just been on the saddle for 3-4 hours, and she would just say, I'm so amazed at your commitment level and at your training. You inspire me. Like what happens with me, like my chest swells, like I was tired. Like I've just been out cycling for 4 hours, but there's an energy that comes just from that sentence. And sisters, I think, to do the same thing. When you see it, say it. I also want to say your appreciation, verbal appreciation, should outweigh your criticism. Here's what I mean by that. And I'm going to get into, you need to be real with us as well. That makes us feel appreciated, all right? But here's what Laura and myself try and do with our kids. Is we try and create an environment where our kids feel unconditionally accepted, unconditionally loved, and respected. And then we discipline them in that environment, meaning we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to bring up maybe where they need to make course adjustments. We might, there's a number of things, but we're going to train them in that, okay? We're going to be real. But if that environment is not there, and the only thing I do is nitpick, criticize, and all of that, it starts to, it's not helpful for building that relationship. So I just want to be, for you to say as well, to mentally sort of keep a tab or a gauge, like, is my appreciation of them outweighing my criticism of them? Catch yourself, even as you speak about them to a fellow sister, does your appreciation outweigh your criticism? Because that will come out. All right. So I just wanted to make that note. Now, on that note, please be real with us. All right. Don't, if you see us go off the road, I appreciate Laura saying, hey, let's, for the men to capture that kind of role. And but I think for women as well, when you see something in us, or you see us do something, say something, not do something, please shoot straight with us. Be gentle, speak the truth in love. All right, definitely do that. But it actually helps us to feel respected and appreciated if you just come to us straight. So don't beat around the bush. I think that would go a long way. And I think that another one here that makes us feel appreciated is, man, it helps if you listen to our opinions. Even when you ask our opinions. You know what's the quickest way to for a man to feel disrespected? So I'm going to teach you how to disrespect a man as well, is interrupt him. Interrupt him mid-sentence, like,
Sorry, Jack, I just have something to say.
Yeah, wait a minute. All right, but interrupt him mid-sentence, or ask his input, or hear him speak, and then sort of look down as if you're disinterested. Like, that is the highway to unappreciativeness. I don't even know if that's a word, but so the converse of that is listen to their opinions. When they speak, pay attention. And again, do not show favoritism. I think it's easy sometimes in a pecking order where with some men that we deem to be more respectable, we listen to them. Our eyes lighten up, man, there's attention. But somebody else, maybe not. It's not helpful. Listen to their opinions, pay attention. And then the last one, which you got to love, you knew I was going to make the list. I made the list last week. What makes a man feel appreciated is definitely a little bit of food. And it could be as small as baking some cupcakes and taking it over. It could be as small as, if you hear a certain brother is sick, take him over like a pack of sweets or something like that. Anything with food. And sometimes, even if it's within your means, to make like a big pan of lasagna, if that's your gift. Especially for the brothers who are not living at home. All right, I would say it's okay to show favoritism there. The other guys have their moms, but those that are not living at home, let me tell you, if you show up with a little note and like a tray of lasagna while they're writing exams, just to say, hey, so I let you know, I appreciate the hard work that you're putting in, honoring God. I just wanted to do this for you. Oh my goodness. He's going to tell all of us, we will hear your name. All right. But that's going to go a far way. So appreciate. The next one is initiate. And I do want to say this, as I've been having conversations, I have been hearing that many of the sisters do incredibly well with this already. Have taken initiative and initiating friendships and conversations and stuff. So I just want to say, well done. But what do we mean with initiate? I think at the most basic level is to initiate conversation. All right. I want you to walk away with this. The guys do want to take it deeper. The whole idea that guys just want to kind of keep it light and just banter the whole time and all of that. And like, sure, we do that. But man, we want to take it deeper. We want you to be able to ask us, looking us straight in the eye, how are you doing? Like, the difference, right? Between like, hey, how's it? Versus looking you, we're sitting next to one another, asking, how are you doing? I guess a difference there. Or, man, what are you learning in your times with God? Like meaningful conversations. I think when you initiate those conversations, it goes a long way to making us feel respected and loved. And that conversation can either be in person. So, man, we sitting on the stand together, at Frisbee and both of us not playing. It could be making a call. It could be in the fellowship after church. Well, we're not really doing that anymore, but at an event, and it's just kind of loose. That's okay. Like to initiate those conversations goes a long way. Also, I think what you can initiate is not all the time, but to initiate sort of setting up some things that they are interested in. So to plan an encouragement date around whatever. If you find out some of the guys love playing FIFA, or if you know the guys love like going rowing, or what, even if it's not your deal, like the fact that you're stepping into their world and you initiate that, man, it's just, you'll build tons of memories, you'll have tons of fun, and it's going to build relationships. You know, one of the things that Laura did, she sort of motivated this, was we were part of a kind of a small group, men and women together, and the women decided to set up a man cave for one night. And they literally altered our house, where they had video games, they ordered pizza, they brought in chicken wings, like everything. So they literally set up what you could imagine a man cave, and then they stepped away saying, no, the idea is not actually for us to bond. We just so appreciate you guys. We want you to have this time. And then after we were done, they sort of came in and we were all hanging out together. But it was just like, I still remember it to this day. It was just this incredible time. So I think, again, if you initiate something that they're interested in, it builds the relationship. And then I think a couple of other things as well, is to also spend intentional time to initiate some time outside of encouragement dates. So, for example, if you know, there's a group of you that are deciding, hey, let's go have a picnic, let's go for a hike, whatever, just invite some of the brothers along. You know, even if you know it, it's not necessarily their deal or what they want to do. Let me tell you, there's so many guys that would be game for that. So do something like that. I remember one of the things we did regularly a couple of years ago, Sunday night movie nights, you know, when Laura and myself were still single. And we would just invite, it would be men and women together every Sunday night. We're just watching popcorn, hanging out, spending tons of time. Sometimes it will last until 10, 11, 12 at night. Other times it'll just be the movie and we'll leave from there. But just sisters, just initiate that. Just shoot a message saying, hey, we'd love to spend time. Do you want to come over? And, you know, I think it'll go a long way. So appreciate and initiate, and they will feel respected. That's our main need. That's our main desire, is to feel respected. Now, I want to close out here, and then we'll transition into some questions and answers. I also asked the question, and this came up last week, how do we normalize friendships in the campus ministry? Meaning, how do we get over potentially the awkwardness where if somebody sends somebody a message, you know, that we remove that, why is he sending me a message? Like, was that an exclamation mark at the end of that one? Does he send an exclamation mark to everybody? Or was that a full stop? Why did he only do a full stop? Why did he sound so angry? You know, or like, if we could just get over that, how do we normalize this? That we could just actually focus on building great friendships without this added pressure of like, is he interested? Is she interested? All right. So I asked some of the guys, and here's some of the things that they've said, which I thought was very helpful, is I think we have to realize that the world often makes it their goal to end up in a romantic relationship. So when there is consideration, when there is intentionality, then there's always typically an agenda. Right? We have to be different in the kingdom of God. We have to start with a goal in mind and agree with it tonight, that for us, that's not going to be the goal. To be considerate and intentional, to be appreciative and to initiate does not mean that this needs to lead somewhere. But what it does mean is that we share a goal where I want my best friends to be part of this group. All right. So I think if we have any shot at normalizing it, we just got to set that, agree on that, and move from there. Okay. I think the other one that was mentioned is, and I guess this ties into the favoritism one. It's just to make sure that you're not overly selective in who you message, who you speak to, who you spend time with. Is, I think, throw the net wide open. Be intentional about spending time with different people, messaging different brothers, phoning different brothers. Because what might happen is, this is just the way that I treat the brothers and people that I want to build a friendship with. Okay, and the same for the brothers. Don't just have kind of a narrow focus, but spread the net wide. You know, and I think some of those relationships naturally will deepen and others will fizzle out. That's okay. What I mean with fizzle out, it doesn't mean I don't love you, but some of them will grow naturally and others maybe not. That's okay. But if we start very narrow and we're going to force this to work, I think it gets weird and awkward. All right. So we just got to let go of that. Then I think I've said it already, for all of us to jointly decide that we're going to make an effort to have deeper friendships. There's no waiting. There's no like, well, they need to go first and then we'll respond. Or they need to go first and then we'll respond. No, it's like we're just all going to make an effort that our goal is deeper friendships, and we're going to go for it, right? And let's please stay away from things like, so what's going on? Hey, I saw in your WhatsApp message, you messaged so and so. Like, let's not do that. All right, that is not helpful, and I think jeopardizes this process. Very last thing, and I know this could be a little cheesy, but is maybe to even be upfront with stating that, man, my desire is to build a great friendship. And when they hear that, it's not, again, we need to get back to the original goal, right? Friendship does not mean like, you're my special friend. No. But to be upfront with it will eliminate, not like NJ mentioned last week, where on the back end of it, now I'm throwing kind of friendship lingo, okay? No, to maybe pull that forward, to upfront say, man, I'm so eager to build great friendships with the sisters, and whatever it might be. I don't know how you state it, but I thought it was a great point. So our hope, and I think Laura and myself, our hope, our dream, our prayer for this campus ministry is one, that there will be deep friendships across genders. And more than anything, that those friendships will look radically different, closer, more connected, than anything that the world could reproduce. And that we truly embrace that kind of Romans 12, that we don't live according to the patterns of this world, but we live by the imperative that summarizes everything, which is love one another. Amen. All right. So why don't we do this? We wanted to open it up for a time of questions and answers. And just find out, like, either Laura or myself can answer that, or if you have a question that we might throw back to you. Let me actually, I'm gonna remove our spotlight here. All right. So either we can make an attempt to answer that, or we could throw it back to you guys and say, let's workshop that. Okay. So let me go with the first question. This is not from me, but I got asked this, but I think it might be something that many of us potentially might be wondering about. One of the questions was, and I certainly put myself under this as well, that I think a number of the brothers realized is that being considerate in what we wear, matters. I think I very naively definitely sort of pinned it as like a woman issue, like, clothing wise and different things. so modesty, yeah, I can't say I've ever taught a lesson on it. Like I've never taught the brothers on modesty. It's never happened before, right? So I'm putting up my hand saying I was surprised by that. But I do think we don't really know what to do with that. Like, so can anybody give us some tips maybe, and how do we, let's start with clothing. Like what would be considered immodest for a guy? And what can we do to be considerate towards you guys? So babe, I don't know if I'm asking you or I'm asking all the women, but let's just throw it open, man. Yeah, Abby or Dan.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for opening this up. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you for this conversation. I'm encouraged that we're starting this conversation. I just want to say, first off, okay, so something that we've been taught as women is that clothing is meant to cover, not accentuate. And I think for you guys to take that to heart. So what I kind of, just a general thing is like, the shirts that Captain America wears in like the movies, it's like 2 sizes too small because we're trying to show some stuff. That's not helpful. I think any clothes that you are wearing to accentuate, your muscles. And I understand that like you guys work really, really hard. I know we've got a lot of gym bros in here, and I appreciate your discipline. It's something I would never be able to do. But I think just to, consider that in your consideration. And I think also something else, just a good tip, is to send a message. This is what we do when I feel, I don't know if this is fine or not. I'll send a outfit pic to a sister or to Laura and be like, hey, what do you think of this? And then they'll be like, this is totally fine. Or, hey, maybe consider this. And so to do that with brothers you trust, or even like Laura, or Jacques. And so to put that out there as you guys are training to do this, I think also reach out to us just in terms of like, I think basic convictions on modesty, I think, because we've been taught on this a lot. So yeah.
That's awesome. Abby, I love the idea of that clothes are meant to cover, not accentuate. Like it's sort of one of those statements where you're like, oh, okay. Like it's simple, but convicting, because again, the world wears clothes to reveal and to attract attention and not to cover. I think that's helpful. I would just add as well, I do think to ask you guys, I think definitely to ask Laura, but I remember it was beginning of this year, Abby, where we went as a leadership group to E.D.G.E, and one of the questions came up as we were going swimming. And the brothers came to me and said, do we wear shirts or not? Or I was like, I don't know, like, and I think we asked Laura, I think we asked a couple of you guys, and we landed on like, no, we're going to wear, shirts as we swim. But I thought that was like a good little moment of just ask, like, just ask, take your cue from that. And if you want to lean anyway, lean conservative, not I don't know if liberal is the right word, but the other way. So that's awesome. Thank you. Babe, anything you want to add to that?
No, I was actually going to use that example. I think that was definitely considerate of the brothers, just asking. And we never know people's struggle, guys. I think that's the reality, guys and gals. We don't know people's struggle. So there might be one. And so if we're going to cause one person to struggle, rather not do it, And I think that's, but also what that does, it's a little weird to the world that now everybody's in full regalia going swimming. But what that does is it makes our relationships stand out. It makes like, hey, what's different about that group? Hey, what's going on? And it's not conforming to the patterns of this world. So I think it helps highlight that this is a group of people who have a different goal in mind.
Love it. All right, who else has a question? Yeah.
Don't be shy, everyone. It's honest chats. Chanel.
Yeah, I think something I'm wondering about is just, where does chivalry fall into all of this? kind of like, because I don't know if it's like generalization to just assume that men should, I don't know, bring the chairs and open the doors and go into rooms last, or if it's actually something that they feel like is they serve us. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know
Yeah.
what are the expectations there.
Chanel, can I push back on you on that one?
Yes.
What would it communicate to you when we do that? Would you feel offended and feel like, what are you trying to do? Or would you feel loved and considered and all of that if we do that? So if we get to a door and I step aside saying after you, purely because I feel like, you know, I want to be shriveled. Liz, what do you think?
Well, I feel considered.
Okay.
I feel yeah, I don't know, not necessarily the walking into rooms necessarily, but just the carrying stuff and being like, when I'm carrying a chair, that they take the chair,
Awesome.
stuff like that. But yeah, I think I asked more for like if the brothers feel like we just expect these things of them, or if it's actually something they do because they want to. If that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right. Who of the brothers want to respond to that?
May I, just to, I think this topic of chivalry is one of those that consider women as unique individuals, because I don't like it. So there's certain things that I'm like, okay, great, but like I don't like the assumption of Tando's holding chairs, I must help her, because I would like to hold chairs too. I want to help out with everybody as well. So I think that's where it comes with like getting to know the individuals and seeing like what kind of woman is this. Okay, that sounds weird because now it's like there's women that just want people to do their work, but I don't mean it like that. I just mean like, does this make you feel considered or does this make you feel offended? So getting to know us on that level. So if it's in a conversation, how do you feel about chivalry, Tando? I'll tell you. So yeah.
That's helpful. Megan and Cara, sorry, do you want to make a comment on this before I get Tom to speak for the brothers?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say it was kind of similar to what Tandil said, but I was just gonna say that I think asking is a very big thing. Like if a girl is carrying chairs and a guy says, "Can I help you with that?" and she says, "No, it's fine, I have it," then the guy must kind of back off, because sometimes what happens is the girl's like, "No, I have it," and then the guy's no, like insists, and they're like, "No, please, can I help?" and then takes it, and I think that's also, yeah, rather bad. So rather if they just ask and then hear what we say and like respect what we say when we respond, I think that will go a long way as well.
Super helpful. All right, Tom.
My Wi-Fi is pretty unstable, so if I cut out, I apologize. But I think I'll probably speak for myself and possibly for most of the brothers here, in that I don't think we do those things just for the, just because we want to prove that we can lift chairs or do anything like that. I think our whole intention is to sort of be serving. I know that for me, whenever I open a door for a girl, I think it's just common decency rather than, walking ahead of them. And I know that for most brothers, it's most likely the same thing. We'd rather wait at the door and let you guys go through. And if you tell us to go, then we'll go if that bothers you. But we've never, at least, yeah, I think I can speak for most of us. We never do anything out of disrespect or to think that you are lesser than us or something. So, if you are carrying chairs around, we're not going to ask you to carry the chairs because we don't think you can carry the chairs. It's more out of just decency. So I don't know if that speaks for it, but yeah.
Definitely does. I would second that, but I do think it's super helpful to ask or to offer. you know, and then to respect whatever is being said. I think that that's safe, and that achieves the goal, which Thomas is saying, which is to be actually helpful, to be decent, and you know, so that's great. All right, another question. Who wants to ask? Kia, go for it.
So I don't know if it's like necessarily like a question or something, but I think a big thing for me is if you're friends with someone, like you guys are friends, like I don't know how to make it. Like Tando is friends with Tom, and they have a lovely friendship going on. And perhaps Tom's friends know something that Tando doesn't know about, or Tando's friends know something that Tom doesn't know about. Can we like have the common decency on like both sides to like not drop a hint and be, you know, like sell each other dreams? I don't know if that makes sense, but like say this guy like be like, so I think this is, just trust me, this is gonna happen, and then it doesn't happen, and then you're just like, you're disappointed, but not because of that person, but because of your expectations that were built because of friends. I know it's normal and we get excited and we're like, so I know this, so I want to tell you, but I can't really tell you, so I'm just gonna drop a hint or something. It's really not conducive to our said spirit mood. It just doesn't feel okay. Like even just like the face remarks and stuff, if you say something if you say something like yeah, please can you tell that person that I said hi and that they must get better, then they're like, oh okay, oh, tell that person, and it's just like, rest, just like, no. So I think that would just be I don't know, that like that's across the board, both males and females. Yeah. So if you have the chat as girls, keep it as girls. Don't go and say, so how's your friendship with so and so? If it doesn't concern you, leave it alone.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Thanks, Kia. Super helpful. Lerato?
Yeah.
Hi guys. So just to add on to what Kia was saying, if say a guy and a girl, like a brother and a sister, already have a good friendship going, can we just refrain from making comments or insinuating things about their friendship? Can we just refrain from saying things like, oh yeah, you have a good friendship with this one, you guys are very close? What do you mean? We are friends. Of course we are close. It's because we are friends, you know? Then why are we now adding spice and sauce and jalapenos all over the friendship? Okay, why are we doing that? Like, can we just stop it, please?
Awesome. Lerato, loud and clear. I'm not adding any spice or Cholula or Tabasco to anything. But I do think it's, what would one call it? It's just unhelpful, those comments. I think it makes things awkward. So I fully agree. I think we got to listen out for it. And we just got to stop one another just to say, hey, I know you mean well, but man, let's not. Yeah. Say again, babe.
No, Tando just said what is it? Hypmentation.
Yay.
I'm trying to spill the tea.
All right, we have Zander, Jack. Again, I don't know who else. Zan and Jack, what's up?
It's Jack Goodhue. It's a reference to Riku when he had a mullet, but
I see.
Amen. Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Lerato was saying. I think it can be very destructive from both sides. People make it seem like the relationship, the basis of the relationship is far way ahead of what it is. And people are making comments and stuff saying like, yeah, so you're spending a lot of time with this person or whatever. But the fact of the matter is we're just enjoying each other's company and having a great time and getting to know each other. And when other people from the outside start pointing that out and start saying these comments, it's like, how can I say this? It limits you to get even more deeper, because now you're so constantly afraid of other people's opinions and how it should be perceived and whatever. So I think God intended our relationships to grow, and people making these snarky comments and getting in between, it's very destructive. So I think yeah, I just wanted to add on to that I feel the exact same way.
Right. Awesome. Fense, and then Fense, Abby, Tando.
I think also on that point, I don't want to like make it seem like we don't ever have feelings for people. We do. That's a thing. And you can say that with your people, great. But I think the problem comes when, let's say I have a friendship with someone and you ask about it. That's okay. And I'll tell you, no, nothing's up. Leave it at no, nothing's up. Don't keep bringing it up after that. You can ask, that's okay. Feelings happen. We all have feelings. That really is fine. But I think the problem comes when now it's the same person. And now when I talk to that person, I feel a little bit uncomfortable because now I'm like, someone's going to ask me, someone's going to suspect something. And now obviously I need to change my energy with this person because I'm giving them, it's fine to ask. I think that's with family. It's good to ask. But once I've said no, leave it there.
Awesome.
Thanks, Victoria.
Abby, yeah.
Hi, I have a question. So if someone else wants to comment on this specific conversation, I think they can go. So Megan, Tando, no? Okay, so my question, kind of the same tangent, but I think, yes, try not to have like stirring the pot conversations. But I think also we're talking about the fact that, we spur one another on towards love and good deeds and all these things. And so I think when it comes to a point where I see a friendship and I see something that I think is unhealthy or that I think could be not beneficial. So imagine I see a friendship and then I'm like, I saw on the Instagram story that someone was at someone's house at like 11 p.m. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but concern. When concern comes in for, I guess, just protecting one another's hearts, treating one another as brothers and sisters, as Ephesians says, how would be the most respectful, least embarrassing kind of way to bring that up? Is that the same thing where it's like when you say it, see it in like appreciation and rebuking? So would you want us to just straight up come to you, brothers, and say that? And then obviously with the sisters, we would go straight to the sisters. But if I know that like I have a friendship with this brother, yeah, just kind of advice on that.
Love it. All right, let's have some of the brothers weigh in. Mark, let's have you go first, and then we'll give it Tom. Great question.
Yeah, thanks for that, Abby. I think that's awesome. I think I definitely feel, man, if you see something in my life, I think everyone is on the same goal. We want to make it to heaven one day. And if you see something in my life that could potentially kind of pull me away from that, absolutely, please bring it up with me. Like I know you'll tell me straight, like, just dude, like, hey man, I'm concerned about this. I don't think it's great for you or the person you're spending time with. So absolutely, I think if we are all on the same goal and the same mission and we have the same standard, I think you should have all freedom to, I think teach, correct, and rebuke. And you're just going to have to kind of discern which size hammer, as Jacques always says, you're going to bring down on us. But no, absolutely. Tell it to us. I think that's anything that's going to danger us from, pulling us away from being like Christ, I think. Shoot.
Amen. Thank you.
Tom, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to add to what Mark said, because I think I'm similar to Mark in that if I'm doing something please just tell me straight. But I think this is where discernment comes in and actually getting to know the brothers. Another brother might not actually want you to tell him straight and would rather, maybe if you see something, then go to his disciple or something like that. I think there is, like we said, there are brothers, just people take things differently. So telling him straight might not be the best thing, and taking another route might be better. What I would say.
Thank you. Thanks for the answers.
Perfect. Abby, and I would say some of the best corrections or rebukes I've had has come from female friends of mine, not because of the volume, but because it just hits different. I remember a number of sisters that I was super close to having very frank conversations with me. I don't know, but it was so good. It was really, really good. So I think those need to happen, and that's part of even growing in our respect for one another and humility. I think if we get awkward where only these people can speak up and these people can't, I think then it's again like a weird scenario. So I would say if you're wondering about it, get input on how to do it, but yeah, shoot straight. If somebody responds badly, let them respond badly and go and figure it out.
Amen. Thank you. And then on that, I think I agree, vice versa. Like,
okay,
if we're trying to build strong relationships, you don't have to send me a message to send the sister a message. Just send the message to the sister about something, unless it's something super, super sensitive and you feel uncomfortable talking about it. Amen. But I think same kind of tangent, just vice versa, if we're trying to build the same relationships.
Awesome. Super. Tando, and then we'll have Megan and Cara.
I also have a question. It feels very random now, but I would like to know. So last week, the other week, when we went through like the list of the the discussion that was had, there's a point that I would really love clarity on, because I think I've been thinking about it ever since, and now I'm like, I'm not going to get an answer myself. What can anyone please clarify on the point about not appreciating terms such as friend being used in conversation? I think why I ask isn't necessarily like to negate your thoughts or anything like that. I actually want to understand, because I call everybody mate, bruv. I just don't call people by their names. It feels very formal, especially if we're building friends. Like that for me shows like, we're close now. Like now you're not, you are, whatever. But obviously, if that's not something that you feel is considerate for you, then yeah. So I just want to get to know that a bit more.
Can I go? Because NJ and I spoke about it a lot over the past week.
Please.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it got caught up in a lot of the things that we were trying to say last week. So NJ was talking about like you're texting someone, right? And so you're having a conversation, and it's so you're asking how someone's day is going, right? And so a lot of the time what people do is they use friend language to like negate any potential romantic interest that they assume the other person has. And so NJ's point was that that's disrespectful, because you feel like he is only talking to you because he sees you as a potential romantic interest or something. So he's saying that he can sense stuff like that in a message. So you ask how someone's day is going, and then you ask another question, then you ask another question, then all of a sudden then my friend comes in there when it gets a little bit deep, just to make sure he doesn't get any ideas, when the whole time NJ was just like texting someone, like trying to find out in general, as like friends should do anyway. And so I think that was the point that may have been lost last week. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Mark, you want to weigh in on that? Thanks, Light.
Yeah, I think, it's very similar to, what you guys were saying, just about how, if we're trying to be chivalrous, our intention might not be, to make you guys feel like you can't do it, or to make you feel like, you're less, strong, or whatever it might be. But I think it's it's the way it comes across. And I think, you know, I think it's the same for this. You know, your intention might not be that at all. You know, sometimes it might not. But I think, yeah, I can definitely relate. You know, it just kind of, it's like, geez, like, okay, I know you're my friend. Like, what's the, you know, it's like, hey, I really appreciate our friendship, friend. And it's like, all right, like, what do I get from that? You know, so I think it's just to be very kind of, to guys, I think most guys don't appreciate that. Bro, mate, those are great. I don't know, maybe other people have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that, but I think, yeah, I think it just, you know, your intentions might be great, but I think the way it comes across is often misperceived, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Tanda, I would just add, and then we'll have Megan and Cara go. I think sometimes it's about consistency. So if you're treating everybody the same way, like if your phrase is, I don't know, friend, or your phrase is that, and that's pretty consistent. There's no change in tonation, because you know how it goes, right? You and me are messaging, and then all of a sudden the exclamation marks stop. Or, hey, why is there just a full stop there? If you're an exclamation mark kind of person. So any change in tonation, what that communicates is something. Or it doesn't communicate, it just leaves me thinking, what's changed here? So I think it's consistency. And if that's your deal, that's your deal. Like, you know, most brothers, but I think it's that changing in tone and switching it up that leaves us maybe insecure. We're like, wait, what did you think what's going on here? And does that help?
This was very helpful. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Amen. Megan and Cara, and then we'll have Sivu and SJ.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone like specific can answer this question. Like, I'm not setting it out there for guys or for girls specifically, but I'm just wondering, like, if you're close with a friend or person of the opposite sex, and someone develops feelings, and then the other person isn't interested. So let's say I'm friends with a guy and he tells me he likes me. Then do you have to cut the friendship off there? Because often what happens is you carry on being friends and then everyone around you says that you're leading them on. Like, I just don't know how to go about that.
Great question. All right, who wants to weigh in? It can be on both sides. Kapana, do you want to weigh in, or you got a question?
I just wanted to answer.
Perfect.
Okay, so I feel like this is applicable even with relationships outside of the church as well, like friendships that you have outside of the church. I think that if a person is straightforward with you about how they feel, I think it's better to ask them as well what they feel they need to do. So if you don't feel the same way, just say it in a nice way. Like, say, okay, you know what? I understand your feelings. I appreciate it, but I don't reciprocate those feelings. So if you want to stop being friends, that's fine. If they say they don't want to be friends with you, then just respect their boundaries. Because I feel like sometimes boundaries are blurred, especially if you just continue to ignore how the person's feeling. The lines can get blurred. So just communicate effectively to one another how you feel. So if you want to continue, but if you don't, then don't. But also be aware that the consequences of that are for you to deal with. So if you do continue and the other person feels like you're leading them on, you can bring up the conversation and say, okay, but we did talk about this and you felt that this was okay. So, so that there isn't a situation where you're placing blame. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Makes a ton of sense. Amy, do you want to weigh in on that? I saw you coming in when the question got asked.
Yeah, I can. So I think for me personally, I know everybody's different, but I agree with asking on how somebody would like to approach a situation if something does happen like that. But I also do think if the relationship was built on a friendship and then one person develops feelings, give the person who has the feelings time to sort of come to terms with the fact that it's not going to happen. And then you can like rekindle that friendship later on. Because you have that base of a friendship, it doesn't mean that it's all going to be lost. You know, you kind of just need a little bit of time apart to figure out what you actually want, you know. So I don't think jump to conclusions when that sort of conversation comes up.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Sivu, do you have a question? Sivu and then SJ.
Actually, it was a comment on Tando's question, and I guess the guys' response.
Oh, sorry.
And yeah, no, it's okay. I think one of the things that sometimes we forget in friendships, especially I think in the kingdom, I've experienced this, is that we kind of forget that we've had like past experiences in the world. And I think as a sister, I would appreciate if brothers kept that in mind. So sometimes, like, I think with NJ's example of like trying to balance the scales by using the word friend, just keep in mind, like, sometimes this isn't it can be intentional, but oh, wow, how do I put this in words that actually make sense? I think the first thing I think would be really helpful is to set your intentions from the beginning. So I think just what Jacques and Laura have been saying about, say that you want it to be a friendship from the start, so that we actually know that this is what we're building, I guess, and this is what's starting. Because sometimes I think as sisters, we can get like confused, and then past experiences from the world, and then it just like snowballs into this whole situation, and then you guys end up feeling disrespected, whereas that's not really, I think, our intention. So if you guys can just remain cognizant of the fact that we've had past experiences, and this, like, we've been treated possibly badly by boys in the world, and that's like brought up insecurities. It's not necessarily just like you as brothers, it's just past experiences. And then talk to us about it and say like, hey, remember, like, this is a friendship. I'm not like talking to you for any other reason other than the fact that I want to build a friendship with you. And just like help us like to remember that. So yeah, I hope what I said makes sense. But yeah, that was just something that came to me.
Thanks, Sibu. SJ, before we go to you, I don't think you'll mind this, but I got a private message from Divan saying he would like to comment on Megan's question. And then possibly we'll have SJ and then maybe one more question, then we'll have to wrap it up. Divan, where are you, brother?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, man.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good question from Megan in the first place. I think definitely from a guy's perspective, I think honesty would be the best policy, in a sense, if he's building a friendship and he's telling you like, I might have feelings toward you, that just be honest with them. To give a practical example, before Sarah Jane and I started dating, we were in a car drive and we had a conversation, and she was very open with me, saying she is trying to build intentional friendships with brothers. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she explained a story to me where another brother might just overstep that boundary. And I was like, oh, shucks. And I told her there, you know, I want to build a friendship with you, but if I overstep, call me back and tell me this is like, I'm pushing too much. So I definitely really respected that from her, where she was completely honest with me and telling me, you know, she wants friendships, but not necessarily intentional friendships. And when she asks, that I should respect her boundaries. So I definitely appreciated her being honest and sharing with me, because then I actually knew where I was standing with her, and didn't try and force anything from there. So yeah, I just think, I hope that helps to give an answer to the question. But yeah.
Thanks, man. Tanda, do you want to comment on that before we move on to SJ's question, or you got another question?
And sorry, my network is a bit weird now. So can you hear me? I don't know if SJ if she's commenting, I'm also just commenting. I'm not asking anything.
No. That's why I think she has a question, right, SJ? Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to get the comments to go.
Okay, cool.
Maybe you can make a last comment on it, and then we'll have SJ.
Yeah. Okay. I got kicked out for a bit, so if I'm just repeating what someone said, I'm so sorry. I think reestablishing what the friendship looks like is a very big thing. So if, for example, someone has expressed their feelings for me and I don't feel that way, moving forward in the friendship, I think out of love for that person, it is it is thoughtful to relook what that friendship looks like. Not necessarily to be like, we're not friends anymore, but I mean, if we were talking until 12 at night, and these are things that could possibly have stirred up, you know, these feelings, I can't now just completely disregard that and be like, now we're talking till 12 at night. On your birthday, I'm making the biggest gestures. You're coming to every family gathering, all of these things, because those things do sometimes, not for everyone, but they do build that like, oh, I thought we were going somewhere. So to consider that specific friendship and how we can reestablish that, like, oh, I didn't know that that's what I was putting, because I don't know if someone, maybe they will, but a lot of the time I think when people then come and express those feelings, it's because they think that we are in this together, and now it's like, oh, we're not together, awkward. Like, it's a lot to have to put yourself out there. So now as a friend, how can I best consider this person, and vice versa, how can they best consider me in the friendship moving forward?
Awesome. Right, our last question of the night. SJ, go for it.
Cool. If my connection drops, just let me know and I'll turn my video off.
Yeah, you did.
I also just wanted to comment quick. I think something as well, just from what everyone has said, I think something that's been helpful too, things for me in situations like these or whatever. One is just advice. We have such incredible women and men around us who we can go to, older than us in the singles ministry and marrieds, so many different people we can be getting advice on with regarding these topics. And then also just prayer. I think we underestimate it a lot in these situations, and just literally speaking to God about these things. So yeah, but my question is for the gents. In your guys' list, it says, it encourages you to know that what you say matters, your opinion matters, and that you feel heard. So I think just I would appreciate, I guess, more specifics on this. I don't think any of us women intentionally do these things, but are there any topics that you feel like we avoid and we don't talk to you guys about that you would love for us to talk to you about more? Or are there like specific situations where you feel like these are consistent and it comes up a lot with a lot of the sisters? So I don't know if that is clear enough for you guys. I can try to clarify a bit more, but that's my question.
It's a great question. Marnus, let's see. Topic 1, Blue Bulls Rugby. Please talk to us about this. Do not listen to Marnus. SJ, I can just weigh in on it briefly here. I think on valuing opinions, it's so funny. Laura and myself do counseling. We do couples counseling. And it's quite interesting to see how frequently it happens that a wife would interrupt her husband. So he's trying to express things or say things, and she would just like interject it. Now, there's a number of things probably going on in her heart that does that. One is maybe the husband is battling to express himself on it, or maybe there's a level, I don't know, maybe even feeling a little embarrassed about what he's saying, but I think we've often seen it where there's just kind of a shutdownness, like the sentence is not done. So I would just say to be very attentive to that, and sometimes it's just making exactly what you're doing with me now, like making eye contact, nodding your head, like listening. That communicates a ton that, man, Jacques, I value what you're saying. And that becomes especially important because I do think, unfortunately, worldliness very easily creeps in. There's a certain set of men that you do respect and that it comes naturally to do that with. And then there's other men, that might be hard, especially if you're older than them, you're older spiritually than them. Like you add all the categories. It's a big thing. But I think you will. It goes a very, very long way. And we even try to teach Anzel to do this with little Lincoln. just because we could see like his little heart, like that fight to be heard. You know, so I would just kind of say that that'll go a long way. And just to catch yourself when you do it, then okay, no, let me not. Okay, so that's just from me. Any of the gents want to add anything to that? And especially, I don't have anything to add to what topics, you know, would you guys want them to bring up with you guys that you don't want to be excluded on? Yeah, guys have thoughts on that? Mark?
Divan, you want to go?
Oh, okay, I'll go first. Thanks, Mark. Firstly, I think Jacques, yeah, what Jacques said, amen. If you're in a conversation and you feel passionate about something and you get interrupted and you're just like, what just happened? I have no clue. And then usually when that happens with me, I feel like, well, there's no reason to carry on with the conversation and get prideful, which is not the correct way to go, but I just feel I'm not, what I'm adding has no value. And then secondly, I would say sometimes you can be in a conversation where there's 2 or 3 brothers together and a few sisters, but everyone just listens to one brother's opinion or what he has to say and value, and everyone thinks, oh, that's just the greatest idea, except not listening to everyone, what they have to say, you know. I hope that makes sense. And I think for me personally, I've grown up with 2 sisters, and I think my mom has definitely raised me to be a person trying to be able to chat to women about a lot of things. And I think sometimes they might think that men do not know certain things in life, or things that women go through or struggle with, or things that they consider women, like things just that women do. For example, talk about, let's say, this is silly example, like ironing or knitting. I'm just using because that's the first thing that popped up in my mind. But sometimes guys might know things about that or things of that and actually can put input to it. But when they're not asked or when they want to say something, they might be seen as, this is not your ballpark, you don't know what's going on. And then they get just turned down. So I think guys really love feeling respected. And even if their opinion is silly, just maybe hear that out, because that will make them feel valued. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Helpful. Mark, anything you want to add? Thanks, Divan. You're good. Sibu, do you want to add to that on SJ's question?
Yeah, I think I wanted to narrow it down. Something that I've always gotten confused with is, how do we tell the difference between when you guys are actually giving your opinions and when it's just banter? Because I've gotten confused a lot of the times, and then we really end up in arguments, and then it's just like, whoa, how do we go from 0 to 100? So if you guys could clarify that, because sometimes I understand what Divan was saying, that sometimes you guys have really silly opinions, and so how do I tell the difference between when you actually really saying something and when you're just for fun? Yeah.
All right. Sibu, let me just quickly ask. I think it's an excellent question. I would love to hear what the gents are going to say. SJ, does that help with it? I think probably what I would say from Divan is just maybe just to check your own assumptions about what are some areas that you automatically exclude guys on and think this is not their area. Maybe just to kind of lower that and say, okay, and I do think that there's some, we need to be sensitive in our conversations. But yeah, just as we can go, women don't want to talk about sport. I think that there's maybe a preconceived idea where we can, maybe there's a richness in conversation that we miss out on. So, so maybe just to try it. And if a guy looks like a deer caught in the headlights, then okay, let's, we'll move on to something else.
Thanks, Jacques. I think.
Yeah,
thanks. I think that also the reason why I asked about the topics is I think sometimes I do stick personally to sports in my conversations with guys, because I feel like that's a common place to meet. And I think sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to breach other areas of art. Like, I think that's where the honesty comes in that we've spoken about, and just getting to know brothers as friends and stuff. So, but yeah, I think something I tried recently as well as asking guys about their quiet times or what they're learning in the Bible and stuff. So that's a new area. I don't know if that makes you guys feel valued or appreciated more. But yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it, everyone.
Good. Guys, I want to be sensitive. It's 9:10. I know Sibu threw out a question. I'm seeing more hands come up. Yeah, I just want to, our aim was to be done at 9. So maybe what we could do is we could just kind of have one comment. I don't know if somebody has a clear, crisp answer for Sibu. How do you discern between banter and an opinion that needs to be listened to? Or are the gents happy with me just saying, get to know the brother? And again, it comes back to that consistency, meaning if you hang around, I want to say Mark long enough or Alita long enough, or so you get to know their sense of humor, their banter and stuff, and it becomes easier to discern. Obviously, it gets sticky when we don't know one another that well. So I don't know if any of the guys feel like, no, dude, you're not hitting that. You can raise your hand, but if you feel like that covers it, I don't think there's that's a great question. And I'm sorry that we make it confusing. So, all right, Abby, last comment.
I just want to comment on the Sivu thing, and Dana has a question. Is that okay?
Okay, we could do it.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so just with the banter and real conversation thing, I think when we overstep that boundary, which is bound to happen when we're building relationships, and both ways, because we do the same, like we're bantering and now you're bantering back and I was actually making a real opinion. And so I think when that happens, it's to practice that speaking the truth in love. So to immediately be like, when I see it, say it. So for the brothers to do the same. So immediately be like, hey, I know that your intention was to be funny, but that was actually a serious point. And I felt kind of undermined there. So yeah. And so that we could immediately kind of resolve that and know that about each other, like in the moment, instead of letting it fester. So I just want to say that.
Awesome. Very valuable.
Okay, so I just want to know, like, so sometimes you're like in conversation with a brother or some people or something, and then I definitely not intentionally, and I think largely just out of ignorance, a brother says something rather sexist, and it's definitely not intentionally. I understand that, and I think it's something that we're constantly learning and growing, and I understand that sometimes we do it as well. But I just think, how do you kind of address that to the brother without making him feel attacked? Do you pull him aside? Do you tell him in private, or just how do you kind of navigate that? Because it's something that's, I think, kind of makes a lot of us struggle. It kind of makes us mad. Yeah.
Sure.
Mute.
Okay. Any of the brothers want to weigh in on this, and then I'll give some closing thoughts on that. Excellent question, Dana. And I think there's maybe an overarching thing as well, where like you said, unintentionally, people are making certain remarks or comments that gets you triggered. And how do you resolve that? And sometimes you're not even close to people like that. How do you bring it up? But especially with sexist comments or, stooping generalizations or anything like that. Okay. Jack, could you, or Zan?
Awesome. I think something that I just want to add to what Dana was saying was, from all the gents that I know, we don't really stand for like sexist comments or just being sexist in general. I think we're all fighting for the same thing. I think we might not realize, like Dana said, the extent of what we are saying. But how to address it, I think it comes back to the way Jacques answered the previous question. It's just getting to know the person better, knowing how to address him, if that makes sense, whether it be right there in the moment, or sending him a text, or putting him aside, or whatever. But yeah, I think the gents would really even appreciate just bring that being addressed, because we're all fighting for unity. in this campus ministry. So if there is even a, how can I say this, even a smudge that's coming in between it, that we want to get rid of it. So yeah.
Right. Jean?
Hi, okay. So something my mom actually taught me on this, which was I felt was very important. Like in high school, I was in physics groups with only boys, and they would make a lot of comments that would really get to me. And something important my mom told me is, if you go to address something like specifically sexist comments or whatever, I think this also goes hand in hand with obviously knowing the brother or the person you're talking to, and just knowing like how you can address them in a way that they can be like, oh, okay, I get this, I see you, whatever. But something important she really told me was, if you ever address something like in this like topic, do it in a way that you don't burn bridges. Like, I know obviously people in this group are very sensitive, but just for any like future reference, if someone who's maybe not in the campus ministry group, who's like at school, university, or whatever, and maybe get to you, make comments in a way that's like upbuilding to any future relationships, or because you don't want to make a comment and then be known as the person who's like, okay, don't talk around this girl because she'll just like eat you out and like just like beat you up about something you said. So just in a way that's like a teaching moment, but also just kind of uplifting, not like breaking them down or whatever.
Awesome. Great comment. Mr. Breda.
Yeah, so I think like what is important is that Dana, that you do bring it up with the gent, and that you don't just leave it. But I would definitely say, I don't know if I speak for all gents here, but I speak for myself, and I think for most of the gents that I know, I would say, don't bring it up in front of like a group of people. So yeah, that would be the main thing. Just don't bring it up in front of a group of people, and we do want to know. So if we do say something offensive, tell us. You know, even like Abby sometimes even just gives me a look, and then I know I've said something. So yeah, it's a process. So yeah.
Right. I'll make a last comment on this. Dana, I think it's super helpful, you know, and I think I've shared before in a very safe space quite a while ago. I've been educated slightly more. I said something along the lines of, I do not understand why women battle with insecurity. It's similar to purity. They should get godly sorrow about it and bash it against the wall and move on. And I'll never forget Maura Lapperman, who's married to James Lapperman, one of my best friends. She looked at me with that look of love that Jesus would have, and she said, "You're going to be single for a long time." And it was one of those moments where I was like, there's no concept in my mind that what I just said had anything wrong with it, like none. And she realized it. But it was one of those almost sacred moments in our friendship where it was kind of an education that started happening there. And she said, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about that, you know? So I think it's also discerning, you know, that some of us are more advanced on certain topics, you know, and I do think hopefully our friendships can get to a place where it's not just addressing it, but sometimes educating it. I mean, we had, again, at Dikololo, you can ask Abby, we had this moment where I said something very honest that had some, you know, overtones, but it was so good. And she was like, okay, let's talk about that. And she and Tando and a number of people, it sort of became like this discussion about help me to understand, like I want to make sense of this, you know? So I do think where it would start is assume the best. So if I say something racist, or if I say something sexist, or if I say something, prejudiced, I hope that your starting place would be like, I'm sure he doesn't know what he's saying. Let me come alongside of him and help him out. I think if you do, exactly like Jean said, your tone, how you're going to do it is probably going to flow from a place of, I'm here to help, and it's going to be gracious, and our friendship will deepen as a result. But if you get easily offended and you start from a place of, I cannot believe you do something like this, and you start from there, our friendship is probably is going to get a little tough, So so I would just say start there, but don't hold back, please, 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 please. Don't silently keep one another at arm's length because there's something I've said or not said. Let's fight for relationships. Does that help, Dana? Yeah, awesome. But great question. Perfect. Well, everybody, thank you so much for logging on tonight. I know we went longer. I feel like there's so much more to speak about, but I really appreciate the questions. I hope that this was a helpful and beneficial time. We'll definitely make the recording available. We'll edit it. We'll put it up there if you want to just go back to it, listen to it some more. I do want to implore you, please don't let this conversation stay here. Maybe in our small groups or one-on-one, whatever it be, keep the conversations going. Let's continue to learn about one another. Let's continue to fight to change our mind and perspective so that we don't conform to the pattern of this world. So, but yeah, it was wonderful. Just to hear all the comments and to learn together. Laura Genis, my beautiful wife, can I ask you to close us off with a word of prayer?
Sure, I can do that. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, God, good evening. Thank you so much that we could come together tonight in the middle of the week and be able to look at scripture, to be able to just have you to finish our day, Father. And God, I love times like this, being able to have honest conversations with brothers and sisters, honest, feeling like we have a safe place to be honest and open. And I think this is just going to be the start of many many deep friendships, Father, from here on out. And I do just pray that, as Jacques said, that we don't just leave it here, but that it carries on, and that we can just get honest, open, real, and grow in our relationships. And as we get closer to one another, get closer to you. And Father, I do just pray for everyone who is still studying, everyone who is feeling down and out and alone. God, I just pray that you bring them comfort in this time and you help us rally around each other as friends, God, through this crazy time, and that we can all just remember that the goal is to be more and more like you and be there as you would be there for all of us, Father. God, I love you so much. Thank you for tonight. I pray all these things in your Son's name. Amen.